Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. I had just started my new job as the property manager at a large apartment complex in the suburbs. It was a big step up for me career-wise, and I was eager to make a good impression. During my first week, I decided to park my car in one of the visitor spots while I went into the office to pick up some paperwork. As I was walking back to my car, I heard someone shouting from across the parking lot. "Hey, you can't park there!" a woman yelled as she stormed towards me. I turned to see a middle-aged blonde woman marching over, looking furious. She had the typical Karen haircut and was wearing exercise clothes and sneakers. "Excuse me?" I replied, confused by her anger. "That's my spot," she snapped. "I always park my BMW there when I'm back from my morning jog. Everyone here knows that." I paused for a moment, stunned by her ridiculous claim on a visitor spot in a public parking lot. "Well, I'm sorry, but this isn't a reserved parking spot," I said calmly. "It's first come, first served." The woman scoffed in disbelief. "Ugh, you must be new here. That spot belongs to me. I want you to move your filthy car right now." At this point, I was starting to get irritated with her rude behavior, but I held my tongue and decided to have a little fun with the situation instead. "Oh yeah? And who decides who gets which parking spot?" I asked with a smirk. The woman raised her chin arrogantly. "I do. I'm the self-appointed president of the Neighborhood Watch Committee." I had to stop myself from laughing out loud. This woman was even more delusional than I thought. "Well, I'm the new property manager here," I replied. "So, I'm afraid I outrank you when it comes to parking arrangements on this property." The smug look on the woman's face instantly faded. She looked stunned as she processed what I had just revealed. "Wait, you're the property manager?" she stammered. "That's right. And I can assure you that there are no reserved visitor parking spots here," I said. The woman's cheeks flushed red with embarrassment. She had clearly not expected to be put in her place by the new manager she was trying to boss around. "Oh, I see," she muttered, at a loss for words. "My mistake, then." "No problem," I replied cheerfully. "But in the future, you should really double-check your facts before berating other residents." The woman just nodded silently, looking completely mortified by the entire incident. She turned and hurried away without another word. I watched in amusement as she scurried back to her building, having been completely shut down. Later that day, I sat down in my new office and pulled up the resident records for the complex. It didn't take me long to find who I was looking for: Kara Williamson in 204B. Her file showed numerous noise complaints against her from other residents. Clearly, she was a longtime troublemaker here. I decided to have a chat with Kara about her behavior towards me and the other residents. The next morning, I had one of the maintenance guys leave a fake notice on her car, requesting she come see the property manager immediately regarding a parking violation. About 20 minutes later, I heard a knock at my office door. "Come in," I called out, unable to hide my grin. Kara entered, looking very nervous. "You wanted to see me?" she asked timidly. "Yes, please have a seat," I said, leaning back casually in my chair. Kara sat down across from me, anxiously fidgeting with her hands. "So I wanted to talk to you about that little parking incident yesterday," I began. "Oh yes, I'm so sorry about that," Kara blurted out. "I had no idea you were the new manager. Honest mistake." I nodded. "Yes, I figured it was just a misunderstanding, but I also wanted to discuss your behavior in general around here." Kara shifted uncomfortably as I continued. "The records show you have frequently been disturbing other residents with excessive noise and hostile behavior. And that little parking stunt yesterday leads me to believe you enjoy throwing your weight around." "No, that's not it at all," Kara protested, but the nervous look on her face told me she knew she was in the wrong. "Regardless, things are going to change around here on my watch," I stated firmly. "If we have any more incidents with you harassing residents or claiming public property as your own, you will face eviction. Do I make myself clear?" Kara's eyes went wide with fear. "Yes, of course," she sputtered. "I promise there won't be any more problems from me." "Good. I'm glad we could have this little chat," I said with a smile. Kara nodded and quickly excused herself from my office. I knew I had made my point. She would definitely be behaving herself from now on if she wanted to remain a tenant here. Later that week, I hosted a resident meet and greet so I could start meeting the community properly. As I was chatting with people, I noticed Kara lingering near the back of the room. I excused myself and went over to say hello since she had been avoiding me since our talk. Kara, so nice of you to join us tonight, I said cheerfully. Oh, yes, thanks for having this event, Kara replied awkwardly. Of course, I want to make sure all the residents feel welcome, I said. I paused before adding, especially those who may have gotten off on the wrong foot when I first arrived. Kara flushed red again. Right, about that. I really am sorry for how I behaved before. I appreciate you apologizing, I replied. Let's put it behind us and start fresh, okay? Kara nodded, looking relieved. That sounds perfect. As Kara walked away, I felt a real sense of satisfaction. I had put a neighborhood bully in her place without ruining her life or anything too drastic. It was a victory won through reasonable assertiveness and a little cunning. The residents noticed the change in Kara's behavior, too. In the following weeks, people would come up to me and remark how much more peaceful the complex was now. I was glad to hear my tactics had worked so efficiently. Kara remained a model resident from that point on, having learned it was in her best interest not to trifle with me. My first big challenge at my new job had taught me a valuable lesson. Sometimes you just need to outwit an entitled jerk to put them in their place. I realized Kara was likely accustomed to getting her way through intimidation. But the second someone with actual authority came along, she cowered quickly. In the end, it felt good knowing I had improved life at the complex so quickly. And I never let Kara forget our little parking incident, always greeting her jovially whenever I saw her around the property. The memory of her embarrassment that day would be sure to keep her polite behavior in check. She had messed with the wrong property manager and got a taste of sweet karma in return. The next one is a pro-revenge story. My best friend was married for 10 years with his ex for a total of 13 years. He was absolutely head over heels in love with her like I had never seen before, which I never understood due to her alcohol abuse. She would take it out on him, and when he'd be venting about it, he'd always fall back on, it's not her, it's the illness. A very respectable and admirable stance on it. Last year she asked for a divorce because, after years of what I would call abuse, he had simply run out of gas. Her reasoning for asking for one? When she got fired for testing positive for weed, he wasn't empathetic enough. He admits he wasn't because it had come on the back of one of her drunken tirades where she told him he was a piece of crap who was always trying to control her. When all he ever tried to get her away from was booze for the way she treated him when she was drunk. It took him forever to move on from this, with the divorce following shortly after. And earlier this year, after thinking he was moving on, he calls me to come over, and he's in a bad way. I arrive, and he is absolutely fall-down drunk, going on that she didn't ask for a divorce for those reasons, that she had really been cheating with several other people. The next morning, when he's more coherent, I ask him how he knew. He was cleaning out the spare room and selling/donating stuff he didn't need anymore, and when he went to clear an old tablet, she was still logged on, and all of the evidence was there. He gets that out and says he's going back to bed and asks me to lock up when I leave. Before I left, I looked at the tablet. After seeing what I saw, I wanted to find a way to get even with the horrible and conniving woman, so I took pictures of it all and left. When I got home, I started looking up information about these people. 2 of them were just normal guys. Whether they knew she was married or not, I don't know. But the third comes up as a registered sex offender, still on probation for being such a disgusting pile of crap, and the address listed as 123 Lane City State. Chomo knew that she was married. I immediately knew what I was going to do. Chomo didn't live at 123 Lane. Chomo was living with the conniving ex. She made regular posts about their time together. On top of that, she is an avid weed user and has several firearms because she enjoys sport shooting. So I go into the state's sex offender site and make a report of Chomo not actually living where he's registered, and that Chomo is living in a home with what he has no right to, being a convicted felon and on parole. I include screenshots of the social media posts and all to back it up. I was thinking little would happen but an inconvenience to their lives. Boy, was I wrong. She broke her typical posts with nothing serious trend on social media yesterday with this gem. My year can't get any worse. Chomo lost his job, and I am now facing eviction because I can't afford my rent. So I go on the state court system site to see if it's related, and yes, it was. Chomo was rearrested. She clearly can't post bail, or Chomo would be out. The job she took after being fired definitely can't support her lifestyle. so he's probably going back to prison or at least jail, and she's a breath away from being homeless. I don't know if I'd ever tell my best friend I was the one behind this, but he is definitely ecstatic to see a horrible woman and sewer rat get what they deserve. Part of me wants to put up the sex offender registration link and that it's sitting in jail and say something to the effect of, "It's a little more than losing a job," but not wanting to make my best friend's life harder, I'll just let sleeping dogs lie. The next one is a petty revenge story. When I was young and naive, I lived in France and started dating a French university student. We lived together for a while. It didn't go well. He was very controlling and manipulative. Fortunately, with the help of some very kind French neighbors, I escaped and returned home. His family didn't take it well. I was his first serious girlfriend and he was the golden child. How dare I hurt him by leaving? Then he faked a suicide attempt. I started getting hateful phone calls from his mother demanding that I return, until one night I got a call from his brother. This was odd because they didn't get along. The brother was an affair child, definitely the scapegoat. The brother had been approached by the neighbors who had hinted that perhaps my ex wasn't the saint that his mother believed. The brother asked me for my side of the story. I didn't really understand that I had been abused at the time and struggled to explain it, in a non-native language to boot. I wasn't doing well at articulating what had happened. For some reason, the one thing that really stuck in my mind, and really creeped me out, even more than the abuse for some reason, was that he had named his penis. Not only had he named it, but he insisted that I call it by name at all times. I mentioned this to his brother as something that I felt really uncomfortable with, then almost as an afterthought mentioned that he had also named the brother's penis and often compared them. There was a very long silence. Then the brother ended the call abruptly with what sounded like, "If you've ever met an angry French person, you'll know what I mean." A series of infuriated noises followed by a growl and almost certainly a lot of hand gestures that I couldn't see. 2 days later, I got a call from his father apologizing on behalf of the family and saying that they would be getting my ex help before they finally left me alone. The next one is a malicious compliance story. About 2.5 years ago, my apartment was broken into during a camping trip. Some things were stolen, including multiple firearms. A year and a half ago, one of my firearms was found with some kids selling crack in a small city right over the border of the next state. The plea deals fell through, and the girl the cops had initially mentioned was going to trial. I received a letter in the mail telling me of the court date and location, but it was explicitly not a summons. Whatever, I wanted my gun back sooner than later, so I went. Both the prosecutor and the assistant prosecutor were out sick, one with COVID. They made us hang around for a while for no reason, and eventually I just left. They didn't like that, but whatever. Being there was legally voluntary. I told them they could mail me the new date and I'd deal with it then. 3 weeks went by, and here we are this morning. I got home from work and checked my mail. There are 2 letters, one for the first girl and another for a guy I know just as an accomplice from the updates about the girl. His trial is today and hers is tomorrow. I went to the courthouse 40 minutes away and let them know I'm here, everything is fine. They brought in the jury pool and spent 2 hours getting down to 7 jurors. The trial started and we were just patiently waiting, 4 cops and 1 other civilian victim witness. They told us no worries, this will be super quick. They basically just need to ask if it's the firearm I reported stolen and I'll be on my way. They called in all the cops who were getting paid this whole time. It's now 1 p.m. I had been up for 24 hours on 3 hours of sleep the day before, after working a 12-plus hour overnight shift. My entire body was cramping, I was super uncomfortable, and I was exhausted. I last ate at 10 p.m. The assistant district attorney came out and told us they're taking an hour lunch break. I told her I can't stay and I need to leave. She told me I'm not allowed to. I already presented as a witness to the judge. I'd been summoned. I hadn't. They can charge me with this or that. One of the cops told me they could detain me. The judge could order me, after I pointed out I hadn't been summoned, and again, this is voluntary. Basically, they tried to strong-arm me when all I wanted to do was go home. I pointed out that this guy isn't even who I was told was found with my gun. The assistant DA started explaining how, oh no, he totally was. I don't know who you heard that from, my local PD mentioned the girl by name originally, giving me all these details about the case, then re-emphasizing, I really must stay or I'll be charged with a crime. Don't worry though, we'll get you in right away so you can leave soon, soon being in more than an hour, minimum. Here's the thing. The judge issued a sequester order first thing in the morning before jury selection. I said fine and waited. Here comes the single greatest act of malicious compliance I've ever committed in my life. All the attorneys came in, all the jury came in. The judge made me swear to tell the truth. I did. As soon as I finished, I blurted out the prosecutor broke the sequester and was telling me about the case during the break. Stop. Everyone except the lawyers out, including me. Eventually, they brought just me back in. The judge again made me swear to tell the truth, confirmed I understood what was happening, told me the importance of a fair trial. Maybe don't witness tamper then. And explained that witnesses are never to volunteer information and are only to answer the questions. You've been summoned, and it's a legal obligation. I let him finish and mentioned that I have never been summoned. He said, "Then I'm ordering you, understood?" Yes, everyone came back in. We all took our oaths again. The prosecutor that was threatening me started asking questions. Here's the thing, I swore to tell the truth. I never agreed to tell it in a way that makes her life easier. She asked me some basic questions, name, age, what I do for work, etc. Then she got into the actual questions. Do I own weapons? Did I report any stolen around this date? Did I own one of this model? Did I report this model stolen, etc.? Is this your gun? It certainly looks like it. Did the ex police contact you when it was recovered? No. Who did? YYT Police Department, my local PD. Did they give you any details regarding how it was recovered? They said it was allegedly used in a crime by a girl's name. Defense objects, and the judge strikes that from testimony. By now, the DA is realizing that she's giving me too much leeway and starts asking for yes or no answers. Eventually asks if I'd recognize the serial number if I saw it. I tell her no. And that roughly sums up my questions from her. Then it's the defendant's turn, and it goes exactly as you would expect by now. I answer truthfully, but in favorable wording. You said it looks like your gun, but you can't confirm? I'd need to compare the serial number against the police report, or the gun shop which still has it on record. Do you know who stole your firearm? No. Do you recognize Ziz? No. She asked a few more plausible deniability questions, and then I was free to go. I can't wait to be back tomorrow for the girl's trial. I'll probably be much less malicious, but I know the DA will be nervous when she sees me. Court is officially over, so the sequester order is no longer in effect. Good times, and don't worry if I botched her case in this regard. That kid had more than enough charges. He should have taken the plea deal. The next one is an entitled people story. Just a few days before Christmas, my husband's older brother's ex-wife called to say that they were in town from Texas and wanted her kids to see their cousins, my kids. We had been extremely busy and had many plans between my husband's aggressive chemotherapy treatments and life in general. But I told them that we had 2 hours in between our busy schedules. They came over and we welcomed them and were gracious hosts. The oldest son, Billy, asked about our Christmas lights. I told him that these are Govey lights and how they come equipped with preset lights for every occasion holiday, and I have been making my own patterns on them. He asked me to show it to him, which I did, but then he asked if he could make some too. I told him no, because the last time you had my phone, you downloaded a few games, and a couple of them had viruses which my cell phone carrier had stopped. My husband and I have some properties and a property management company. I got a call and walked away to answer it. As I came back to where everyone was seated, Billy grabbed the phone out of my hand, and I asked him to give it back, but he held the phone away from me. I am 5 feet 7 inches tall and just under 130 pounds versus his 6 feet and over 260 pounds. My husband walked over and grabbed it just as rudely and told him never to grab things out of people's hands. Well, the mother, Barb, didn't like that. She has said many times that we don't like to say no to our kids because there are too many no's in the world. Meanwhile, Billy was throwing a temper tantrum while Nick, the second born, couldn't keep his hands off the candy jar. I have this candy jar that is like a tree with 5 glass jars. I fill it up with colorful candies. I had sealed it so we don't have a temptation to have some. There were some leftovers that I gave them. They grabbed handfuls and stuffed their pockets with it, so I don't know why he wanted more. Anyway, the candy jars came crashing down and there was glass everywhere. My husband cleaned it all up, and I very calmly told Barb that she owes me $300. She was shocked that I asked because the old me would have just gotten over it. But prior to all this, I had gone out and bought Nike brand t-shirts for the 2 older ones and toys for the younger ones. They opened up the gifts, and Nick and Billy both said, "Is this all we are getting?" So after the candy crash, I went off on them, beginning with, "What did you get for my kids? A couple of small card games? Did we say anything about it?" My kids thanked you and went about to play. They left in a huff because I reminded them that we have prior commitments, hopefully never to see them again. Barb left my husband's brother after she lost 80 pounds. My brother-in-law is now deceased. So done with selfish people. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.